Well, there is a different way to make sure that our schools and our teachers are accountable. And I'm going to call this back to the future. You know, I'm an old teacher, and I'm going to share something with you. You know, when an older teacher questions education reform, we're sometimes looked at a little bit askance because we're fuddy-duddies, maybe we're impeding progress and those kinds of things. Well, that's something that we have to confront, because simply being against or questioning a reform doesn't mean that one doesn't want to change. It doesn't mean anything negative necessarily. So with that said, let me tell you that we have done things that have worked beautifully in our schools. In fact, when I talk to parents individually, most of them will say they are satisfied with their child's school, they're happy with their child's teacher. And it doesn't matter where I go back to visit relatives in Minnesota, I go to Oregon, I go to Idaho, they're happy with things. Then I say, well, what do you think about education in this country? Oh, terrible, terrible, terrible. So that's, you know, there's a little disconnect there. How can things be great in individual classrooms but terrible across the country? Okay, so remember that thought. So what happens in individual classrooms? And what are some accountability alternatives? Well, one of the things that we do in schools is we undergo accreditation. And accreditation is a process where the entire community is involved. And we examine our courses of study, we examine communication with the community. Without revealing names, we're looking at student progress, those kinds of things. So I think the accreditation process is a great means of ensuring some accountability. You know, many years ago, Idaho had a couple of great tests. They were called the Direct Math Assessment, DMA, and the Direct Writing Assessment, the DWA. And let me tell you why these assessments were so powerful. They were powerful because, first of all, everybody knew the rules. The rubrics, or the scoring guides, were available to parents, to students, to teachers. Doing math and writing are a natural part of many courses. We don't just write in an English class. We don't just do math in a math class. There's math to be done in science and in social studies. There's writing to be done in math, social studies, and science. So what was great about these two tests, the DMA and DWA, is they could be used by any teacher across any subject area, and they could be incorporated multiple times. The students had multiple times to practice. The students also knew the rules. Parents knew the rules. So mom and dad could take a paper at home and go over it with their child. Everybody knew. There were no secrets. When it came time to grade the state level test, the real power was this. Teachers got together and they worked on their craft. So the expert teachers at grading writing and grading mathematics worked with novice teachers. You know, back in the Middle Ages, we had the old guilds with the apprentice, the journeyman, and the master. It worked. It continues to work. So the direct writing assessment and the direct math assessment provided a fertile ground for teachers to perfect their craft. It's no longer done, sad to say. I'd like to see that brought back. What can teachers do within their buildings? Well, besides doing writing and math assessments, teachers can work together, and there are a couple of really powerful ways for teachers to improve their craft. One is called the lesson study. What a lesson study does is it gets teachers of a particular grade level and class together to talk about a lesson. So in science, if I wanted to do a lesson on ways that heat is conducted, I would share my lesson with my colleagues and we would go over it and tune it up until it became effective. Well, with the focus on high-stakes testing, teachers don't do that anymore. They don't have the time. They're getting trained on high-stakes tests. Another is professional learning teams. And again, this is where teachers can get together and maybe design a year's worth of science experiments, or they can get together over several grade levels and look at the mathematics progression. So again, these are the doing kinds of things that make teachers better teachers. The bottom line is, when it comes to helping children, it's all about classroom assessment. Okay, classroom assessment rules. And if we want better schools, I think that's where we're going to invest. So in the last section, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what classroom assessment should look like.
Nailed it.